22. But Milo did not hang around to hear. She turned and walked quickly away, to the back stairs, with echoes of, to come down to her room. And, I was only being friendly. And I did ask you, Mr. Carson, to speak to the footman. And Jimmy, you are never to speak to Miss Ashby when she is in this house. Propositioning a young woman like that. And propositioning? No, Mr. Carson, I never meant. And well, it didn't sound like that to me. And it finished with Carson growling at Thomas, Miss Ashby's sleeping arrangements. I always knew it was going to be a problem. It was quiet in her room, and Milo closed the door behind her with a sigh of relief. Too much to think about, too much to know, too much to get wrong. And she closed her eyes as soon as her head hit the pillow, still in her hairpins and best dress. 88,888,888. Daisy was up as 6, as were the other maids, and it was the undercook that Milo called to as she passed her door. Blimey, Milo, did you sleep in your clothes? She nodded, as Daisy unbuttoned the buttons down the back. Milo stepped out of it, finding her suit, and pulled her slip over her head. Steady on, Daisy told her, as a temporarily naked Milo found out her long johns and vest. Before putting on her suit, she was comfortable in that she could take her clothes back to Mrs. Rutherford. She could help her organize what she needed. You have a few things drying in the scullery, Daisy told her. Stop here while I fetch them, will you? And minutes later, as Milo finished packing her suitcase, another slip and 2 underskirts were handed to her. I am sorry you're going, Daisy told her, and Milo thought she looked sorry. When will you come back again? Soon, Milo said. The dread that was the unsettledness of Mr. Hepworth's tenancy now surfaced as the largest thing that now connected her to Downton, a not very nice large thing. My house, and my shop. I have concerns, business there. I'll miss you, Daisy told her, and, as she showed Milo to the yard door, asked, are we friends, Milo? Milo smiled to Daisy. Friends? She had never considered it. Yet, the young woman kept apples for her, and let her sit in the kitchen, and showed her how to cook. For my part, yes, Milo said, and Daisy broke out her biggest smile. And for my part, too, she replied. Daisy, will you say goodbye to Mr. Barrow for me? Milo asked her. He's not down yet, and I need to catch my train. Course I can, Daisy promised her. And, tell him I'll see him soon. Daisy nodded. How strange, this young girl, and the austere, unfriendly under-butler. Yet they seemed to understand one another when few other people did. Happy birthday, Daisy called, as Milo began to walk across the cobbles of the yard. 17 today. Sorry I've nothing for you. Milo strode back. You said you were my friend, Milo told her. That is something for me. She tapped her pocket. You gave me the seeds. Daft. Daisy ribbed her, gently. They would only have got thrown out. And she watched Milo Ashby cross the yard, and make her way over to the path that led towards Downton station. 88,888,888. Thomas caught up with her as she approached the station. He had heard Daisy wish Milo goodbye and demanded that the young woman tell her what had gone on. She's gone to get the 8 o'clock train to Manchester, Daisy told him. Didn't you? Then he grabbed his hat and coat from the servants' hall pegs and began a run across the yard. And where are you going? Mrs. Hughes asked. Thomas skidded to a halt and told her. And she didn't tell you? She had, Thomas thought, but he had hoped she might stay a few more days, even without the excuse of her house and business. I thought it was because it was her birthday, said Mrs. Hughes, as he reached up onto the washing line, feeling the frozen dishcloths, and tutting Ivy for not having remembered to bring them in. Yeah, what? Her birthday, Mrs. Hughes repeated. You married her, didn't you know? Thomas stared at her, and glanced down the hill. Please, Thomas implored. Tell Mr. Carson ... Tell him anything. I have to see her before she gets on the train. Mrs. Hughes smiled. Then, she stepped towards him. Here, she said, holding out her hand. Give her these. But whatever these were, Thomas shook his head, feeling to his pocket. It was there. It was always there, as a reminder, as a threat to tell him what his life would be like if he didn't keep up the act. "What would you like me to tell Mr. Carson?" Mrs. Hughes demanded, but Thomas didn't answer, for he was already in the courtyard. He saw Tom Branson heading towards the garages. "Quick, Branson!" "Mr. Branson!" Thomas called, and when Tom Branson turned, Thomas called, "Can you drive me to the station?" Tom stopped. "I can," he said. "But why?" Thomas held his jaw for a moment. "It's Milo," he admitted. "I didn't know she was leaving today." "Right, get in," Tom told him, and he pulled up the bonnet and pulled the choke, then got into the driver's seat, starting the engine. "Look, Mr. Barrow," he told Thomas as they set off, "I am sorry about the necklace." Milo was most put out, "And I am sorry about that, too. I'll pay for it to be mended." "That's very good of you," Thomas told him, and from his pocket drew out the watch. It was his conscience, his governor. "When I left home, there were two things my father threw after me, into the mud," Thomas Barrow told Tom Branson, bitterly. "Both were my long-dead mother's, the opal necklace, and this watch." He took it out, and turned it over in his hands. There were 5 small diamonds embedded in a floral engraved design on the lid, which sparkled in the early sun. "It never worked, or so he told us," Thomas went on, as they passed Downton's drive gates, "and he could never mend it. The opals are just plaster and paste. Worthless," he called after me, as I left with my clothes on my back and 3 shillings I had earned at the public house in London Street. He drew his eyes, which had been fixed on the road ahead, glancing to his right at Tom Branson's ear, before looking ahead again. A distant puff of smoke along the line told him that the 8 o'clock train was coming in. "Worthless," Thomas said, his voice lower now, remembering the day. Mr. Leon storming round to their shop, his brother looking at him out of the upstairs window. "Worthless, like you." Thomas inhaled. "I wouldn't have bothered paying for it to be repaired." They drove in silence for several minutes, birds twittering in the crisp morning air. "How can it be that I feel I just want to protect her from the world? She is so good, has few faults. And even those she never means." Thomas shook his head. "Who knows why we love?" Tom counseled. "She's Irish." Thomas looked at him. "Anglo-Irish," he corrected. Tom Branson glanced across to him. "Yes, Irish." The steam cloud moved, and he turned to Tom Branson. "Can't this thing go any faster?" "Well, he asked for it." Tom Branson pushed his foot down hard onto the accelerator, making the Bentley skim over the dirt track. Avoiding the bridge, he turned the car and headed over the field opposite the railway platform. "No need to wait, Mr. Branson," Thomas told him, and Tom clapped him on the shoulder before he leapt from the car. "Good luck," Tom Branson called, before driving away. The train was just pulling into the station as Thomas got to the platform. Steam circled around the passengers waiting to board, and he could not discern Milo, or anyone else. "Milo," Thomas called. "Milo." And suddenly, she was in front of him, in her suit, hair pulled back, case in one hand. "Thomas, I am sorry I missed you," Thomas told her, and bent to kiss her cheek. "And that you were going so soon I thought you might stay longer." "But I explained." Yes, I know," Thomas agreed, as the guard began slamming doors at the rear of the train. "And I wish you the very best until I see you again." He pressed the diamond-encrusted pocket watch into her hand. "Happy birthday," he told her, kissing her cheek again. "But I don't need anything," Milo told him, the doors closing up and down the train. "But you can want thing, Milo, you are allowed to want things," he told her. "Does it shine enough for you?" Milo smiled. "It is beautiful," Milo told him. "But you already gave me my work." "That's a hard thing to put under the Christmas tree," Thomas smiled. "If you still like him, tell him. Maybe he can be friends with you, Thomas." And this time, he took his wife in his arms and hugged her to him. Then, as the door beside her was closed, Thomas put his foot behind it, and nudged it open with his knee. He held out his hand and helped Milo climb the narrow wooden step into the carriage where 3 other people were sitting. Thomas had got as far as the end of the platform and was beginning to head over the fields when the tears came, tears of rage and sadness and jealousy and regret. Why could he not have Jimmy, as he had had Ernest. Why could the lad not kiss him back when he wanted him to, put a hand to his face, love him? In his imaginings Thomas Barrow was kissing Jimmy Kent, being close to him, touching his body, hearing his heartbeat when he rested his head on his chest. She gave him the confidence to be himself. Being married so she could work meant he had someone who depended on him. That was strength. At the square by the clock tower, Thomas did not turn left to take the slow rise path that led to Downton Abbey. He did not, because he saw Milo's home, and he turned, striding over to it, and through the unlocked back door. The man who had convinced Milo that what Thomas had found was a blip was asleep on the floor with an empty bottle of gin in his hand. "You, get out now," Thomas demanded, grabbing the man by his shirt and pulling him upright. Then, Thomas threw him out, locking the door from the inside and taking the key with him. "No lease, no argument," Thomas told the man, who had begun to protest about his tenancy rights. "You were the one who insisted to me, Lucina, that one wasn't necessary." That's what he could do for Milo, take up Matthew Crawley's offer of new tenants on her behalf. Leather was a good trade, everyone needed that. He could do that for Milo. And, as for himself, find it in himself to be strong, until she came back. Milo, the person who made his desire for men diminish to nearly nothing, the someone he could give all his attention without any fear of repercussions or gossip about something he had said. Someone who gave him the will to carry on. Dear Milo,